Hey friends, before we get started, I just want to place a little trigger warning that I am going to be showing images of Black caricatures. If you've done any type of Black history, you've probably seen them in some form or another, but just figured I would give you guys a heads up just in case those things are triggering for you. I know sometimes it's hard for me to look at too, so if you don't like seeing images of Black caricatures, there's nothing like violent or anything or like death or anything like that. But if you don't like those images, you might want to skip this video and do some research on your own. So, that being said, let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As promised, we are doing a Black History 365 video today. Yes, let's get into this. So I realized that I never finished my series on Black caricatures, so I'm going to pick off from where I left off. If you didn't watch my previous video, I did it on the mammy. So if you want to learn more about how the mammy originated and kind of what impact it's had on society today, go watch that previous video. But today, I wanted to talk about the caricature of our favorite word, the coon. Very interesting history behind this, and the reason why I wanted to address caricatures in the first place is because these are kind of the uh, I guess original stereotypes, that have kind of fueled every stereotype that exists about Black people today. Before we get into the Coon caricature, I wanted to, if you're just tuning in for the first time, or maybe if you're just not sure what a caricature is, I just wanted to give you the definition of a caricature, so we're all on the same page here. Most of you probably already know, but the official definition of a caricature is a picture, description, or imitation of a person or thing in which certain striking characteristics are exaggerated or in order to create a comic or grotesque effect, right? Basically, they're characters that were created to exaggerate and to mock people of a certain race. In our case, Black people. I'm sure most of you are familiar with things like minstrel shows. That would be a caricature. Those kind of things. So, the coon. The coon is considered to be the most offensive of the Black caricatures, which personally to me, I feel like that's kind of up for debate, but I can see why it would be considered that. It is kind of the sole basis of blackface, where blackface came from and minstrel shows came from. It came from the caricature of the coon. The word itself is short for raccoon, as you guys could probably guess, which in and of itself is very dehumanizing, as you're quite literally referring to Black people as animals, right? So the coon actually also has a lot in common with another caricature that you may not be as familiar with, but it's called the Sambo. They're pretty much kind of the same thing. The only difference is one is typically is used to refer to a child. Right, so some of the characteristics of a coon slash Sambo is both of them played a huge role in images and stereotypes that we see today. Both of them were used to show Black people as lazy, stupid, unintelligent. They weren't capable of surviving by themselves without white people, without their masters. They were inferior. They were easily frightened or manipulated. They were weak. They were kind of seen as like an overall buffoon, right? Those are kind of the overall characteristics of both the coon and a Sambo. But there are slight differences. I was actually very interested in doing this research because I found that the Sambo is actually more in line with what we would call a coon today, right? Today we use the word coon to refer to like a Black person who's basically sucking up to white people, right? Stepping on their own race of people to please white people. But actually, a Sambo was more that type of person. See, a Sambo was a Black slave who was content with being a slave. It was actually used to defend slavery. White people used the Sambo character to say, well, slavery is actually a good thing because, as you can see, Black people, these Sambos over here, are actually very happy with being slaves, and they're too stupid to make it in the world on their own, so clearly slavery is a fantastic thing. This was an actual idea and like logic that people use. The whole Sambo character was made popular by the book called Little Black Sambo that was written by this racist hoe called Helen Bannerman. The original book was actually about an Indian boy, which I did some research on Sambo itself, and apparently there is another meaning, I guess, context of it that has to do with like mixed race people and also Native American people. I didn't really go too deep into that, but there are a lot of different meanings behind the word Sambo. But in the context of what we're talking about today, that is kind of what made Sambo, the caricature of Black people Sambo, popular. Just for reference, some other books that she wrote were Little Black Mingo, Little Black Quasha, and Little Black Squibba. So, you know, this bitch was kind of a racist asshole. Just saying. So come the early 1900s is when the Coon caricatures started getting put into media. And that's where we see a lot of the pop-up of minstrel shows and black faces. And then a lot of what they call Coon shorts, which were basically like short cartoons that you see a lot of. And they were all stories about coons.
Boy, wake up there. Wake him up there. If anybody's going to sleep in this court, it'll be me. Hey, wake up. Come here, boy. There. Come on over here, right there. What's your name?
Jeff Poindexter.
Poindexter?
Yeah.
Who gave you that?
Mr. Riley.
Ranny? You mean Major Randolph Poindexter from down at Pine Bluff?
Yeah, the Pine Bluff.
Right. The very first cinematic appearance is a cartoon called Wooing and Wedding of a Coon, which opened up in 1910. Some other notable ones were How Rostas Got His Turkey, The Chicken Thief, Coon Town Suffragettes. So as you can see, they're pretty fucking racist, as you can imagine. I tried to do some searches for this, and as you can imagine, most of them are not available. A lot of them got banned after a while, as they should be. But I think one of the reasons why it's considered the most offensive is because I think it's probably the most influential. Like, the Coon caricature really exploded in media. And even honestly, if you watch some of the cartoons like Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny, those are pretty fucking racist. So I can see why this caricature is considered the most offensive and definitely the most influential, because it's a character that we've seen last for hundreds of years and honestly still exists in today's media. But with the rise of that, it also brought on jobs for Black people. The most notable actor being, I don't know how to pronounce his name specifically, but I believe it's Stepin Fetchit. I don't know. If somebody else knows how to pronounce that properly, let me know. But he is known as the greatest coon actor of all time. And I was kind of conflicted when I was reading about him, because on one hand, it's like, what are you doing, my guy? Like, you just over here cooning out for these white people. But on the other hand, he's also was extremely successful. He was the first Black actor to receive top bills in movies. He's also one of the first Black millionaire actors to exist. So it's like, it's kind of that whole thing of like, you got to do what you got to do to feed your family. Like, whereas we kind of give Black people a pass on playing slaves or the mammy or whatever it is. It's kind of that same thing, but at the same time, it's also like, you really literally just in here to be a coon for white people. So, you know, I don't know. What do y'all think? Let me know in the comments. But he became so successful because he was so good at portraying a coon to the point where white people felt like they were seeing a real racial stereotype in person. He's also, when I was reading up about him on his biography, I just did kind of a quick skim through, but he's also praised for like adding a little bit more depth and character into these racist characters. You know, they're going to be racist regardless, but I guess if you're that actor that can kind of come in and give it 3 dimensions, I guess that's something to be praised. I don't know. Like, you know, so there's 2 sides to all of this. And like I said before, he was the first Black actor to receive top billing in movies. He was the first Black millionaire actor. He was elected into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame. You know, all these great accomplishments, but at the end of the day, he's still remembered as the greatest coon actor of all time. Which brings me to the closing part, which I always like to follow up, is how this caricature still exists in today's media. And honestly, I think the coon is probably one of the most popular that's still used in today's media. One of the biggest that I see come up when I was doing my research, there was always one character that came up every single time, and that is Jar Jar Binks. Now, for those of you who have never seen Star Wars, I suggest you Google Jar Jar Binks and watch just just a 30-second clip of Jar Jar Binks, because it's almost impossible for him not to be, maybe not necessarily a coon, but it was definitely blackface. Like, another one that I saw come up was Buckwheat in Little Rascals, which I can kind of see, although I don't know that I would necessarily put him in the coon category, but I can definitely see the racial stereotype that exists there, right? He's kind of he has like no attraction, nobody really likes him. He's kind of just there for comedic relief. So I kind of get that. I don't know that I would necessarily put him in the coon category, but it was interesting to read about. I saw him come up a couple of times in the research that I was doing. For me personally, I feel like a lot of reality television is based on a lot of coon caricatures. That's just me personally. I'm really interested in to know what characters exist in movies and TVs today that you guys think fit this coon stereotype and characteristics. Leave your comments down below. I would love to have a great discussion on this. It's supposed to be an educational discussion, so keep it cute, guys. We don't need to be attacking each other. Just, let's have a discussion about this, because I think it's a great thing to talk about. That being said, you guys, that is all that I have for you today. Again, this is not a 100% in-depth history on this topic, so if you want to learn more, I'm going to put a couple of links down here that you can get started in, but definitely do some more research by yourself. These are just kind of the overall highlights of stuff, and yeah, let's start a discussion down in the comments, guys. Thank you so much for supporting, and see you guys next time. Bye.